Good morning, viewers. Welcome to this edition of Focus on Parliament. I am Agather, your host, and today we want to talk about an issue that has created a bit of uneasiness within the members of Parliament, and that's the survey that was done by the New Vision and run in the last week's dailies. I mean, in the New Vision, I think twice. They first ran one group and the other, that talks about MPs that have performed, that have been active in Parliament, and that was determined by how many times each MP has spoken on the floor of Parliament. I actually saw someone on Twitter saying she doesn't know how to use this information. Her MP has never spoken on the floor of Parliament. So you have people thinking their MPs are not working because they have not been on that list. But also you have MPs and other people saying or wondering whether that is an effective way of determining the performance of how active an MP is or not. And also, we will discuss a bit about committee leadership. The sectoral committees of Parliament have a lifespan of 1 year, and at the end of each session of Parliament, they are supposed to be changed. And there has been a call from party whips, especially I think the acting chief whip of the NRM currently is the Prime Minister, Right Honorable Robin Anabanja, who is calling for applications. But then again, we also still look at what should determine a leader of a committee and the performance of the outgoing leaders. And to discuss with me that is a panel. Some have really done work on Parliament, scorecards and rating and monitoring its performance, to tell us about these things and how they should work, and if we are determining the performance of our MPs the right way or not. I'll start with the gentleman on my left, and this is Dr. Gerald Werikhe. Dr. Werikhe works with the African Leadership Institute as the head of civic engagement. You're welcome to the show, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Aruhaire. I'm glad to be here and to discuss matters of Parliament. That is what we do. I'm the head of civic engagement and research.
Okay, You're welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Next is Honorable Rose Obigah. Honorable Rose has been with us on this show a couple of times, and she is the member of Parliament for the woman member of Parliament for Terego. And Honorable Rose, after being in Parliament for 1 year, I am sure has a view on how these things actually work in real life, apart from those who are theoretically picking and saying this one has performed and this one hasn't, based on Honorable Rose, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here again. It's quite some time.
Yes.
But I also needed to give attention to my constituency.
Yes.
Good morning, viewers.
And lastly, we have Timothy Chemonges. Timothy works with Parliament Watch, and Parliament Watch, actually, most times people follow Parliament Watch's tweets to see what is going on. And I think monitoring as far as Parliament is concerned and giving people news and reports timely to the people, Parliament Watch has done a good job. You're welcome, Timothy.
Thank you, Agatha. Thank you so much for this. And Parliament Watch, anytime regarding Parliament, we are present.
Okay, you're welcome to the show. So we'll get right into it, and I'm going to begin with you, Honorable Rose. You have been in Parliament for 1 year now, and Parliament has 528 members currently. What do you make of the survey that rates the activeness of MPs depending on how many times they have spoken? How is it possible that all the 528 will get a chance to speak in Parliament?
Yeah, thank you, Agatha. Yes, on this survey, what I can say on the numbers, yes, we are many, over 500 MPs, but yeah, it's possible for every MP to say a word on the floor. Reasons, they make us come in Parliament in shifts. Now, the fact that we don't sign anymore at the entrance makes many MPs think even if you are not there, nothing happens. It's okay, because how will you rate me if I'm not in Parliament? But a lot of work is done also at committee level. I wish New Vision took time and also said, okay, on committee discussions, this is how the rating is. My challenge with them is, again, when they rated ministers the same way they're rating other MPs who are not ministers, who are not on the parliamentary, how do I say, not even those who are chairpersons or vice chairpersons, because these committee chairpersons have a lot of chances of expressing themselves. They present reports and so forth, and it has not been so clear whether you are debating or you are presenting a report. So everything is category.
Yes.
So other MPs are saying they have appeared on floor of parliament, have spoken, but again, they've been rated 0. I don't know how far true this is. But personally, me, to say I spoke only 15 times, I disagree. Because each time I'm in parliament, I say something. So how come really at my level, really 15 times? Yes. How did they get this information from Handset? So there's a lot going out there. Maybe they could do this for the main parliamentary sessions, then they also do another one for committees, so that these MPs are not so much aggrieved. Yes. Those who remain active on committee and didn't get chance on floor parliament. You know, there are these MPs who were previously there, maybe the 9th and 8th and even 10th. These MPs get abnormal chances. You start with them, you are not picked. They say you must catch the speaker's eye. You start looking for the speaker's eye, and at times for me, they say, yes, madam, me, remember. You see, now you look mad. It's good to give chances, but I think the speaker has now seen this. People are really sad. And of course, once you are rated 0, 2, 3, 4, I can tell you, I can assure you, if this is in Terego, you are finished. You are finished. I thank God for giving me the energy. First of all, we were not helped, prepared, modeled to speak on the floor of parliament. Now they are bringing induction. Nothing. Now they are bringing a schedule for induction after people have been rated 0. You know, it's not easy
to give them a chance to redeem themselves.
Yeah, but that redemption, the message has gone. Yes. It's true there are members of parliament who do not know where to start. They don't know. And there has been no induction.
Yes.
So this rating, I take it both positive and negatively. I do not believe at all that I spoke only 15 times. No, not at all. Unless we go to the Handset one by one and I be there. Because anyone can do anything. And I also don't know why New Vision rated me 15. Yeah, so I think, this rating was good to awaken MPs who just beep parliament and stay away. Yeah, and those also remain at
So let me ask Dr. Werikhe what he thinks, because Honorable Rose's concern seems to be on actually that even the talking, the number of times were not captured very well for those who spoke, because she says some people who are rated 0 yet they have spoken. But for you as someone who has done scorecards on parliament for a long time now, as you said, since the 7th parliament.
Yes.
Is it the most effective way in the first place? Considering it doesn't actually, it's not up to you. You had her talk about catching the speaker's eye. And now you have those many MPs waiting to catch the speaker's eye. Is there another way we can rate the performance?
Thank you very much, Agatha. First of all, I'm not here to legitimize what the New Vision did, but I would like to commend them for attempting to do some work on the performance of MPs. We are in a partnership with them, and when we released one of the reports in 2020, they really gave it the coverage that we needed, and the whole country was discussing the report. But for you to evaluate Parliament, you need to look at a number of things. One, the understanding of how Parliament functions, not only in the plenary. For instance, one of the shortfalls I find in the New Vision report is that it focuses majorly or only on the plenary. And yet there is work, like she said, that takes place in the committees. So at Africa Leadership Institute, we piloted in the 7th Parliament 1 year, and indeed it was horrible. It was an attempt, and we also looked at only the plenary, but the feedback we got helped us to refine our methodology. So over the time, in the plenary, we had a number of avenues of assessment. One was participation, because we thought that a parliament is not a, from its language, a talking house, that at least someone should be able to contribute to the debate that takes place in parliament. So for us, we looked at a Hansard, but not the number of times you spoke. We looked at the lines, the volume of the contribution you made in terms of percentages to the total debate. Then we also thought, but someone can talk and is not influential, there's no substance. So we said, but that is subjective. How do we measure this? We decided to come up with a parameter called debate influence. Influence means that when you rise up to speak, like Honorable Rose, there are people who see sense in what you speak, and they're able to say, in reference to Honorable Rose, I also take this line of thinking. So we would measure using the volume of debate contributed by others in reference to what you said. And of course, the other important measure was attendance, because we thought Parliament is not a radio station that you'll stay in your home and call in. And since you are representing, you have to be there. So attendance was very critical. But along the way, we also introduced that maybe our rating could not be okay. But how do other MPs view others? We introduced peer assessment. Peer assessment was to have a way of how MPs rate each other, but we would just use a formula whereby you are rated by MPs from different sides, opposition and NRM and independents, like other 20 MPs to vet you. On some parameters like discipline, teamwork, intra-party influence, so it could give us an idea. But also when we try to measure correlation that time, we discover that people who are performing well in peer assessment were also doing well in plenary performance. While those who are doing poorly, like you'll get a person who has 0, 0, 0 in the peer assessment. You go to the Hansard, even other MPs don't know the person. So we did not stop there, went to the committees to look at still participation and attendance, but we also started measuring the productivity of committees. We discovered some committees, for instance, in 8th Parliament, we had a challenge, 9th, where there was a matter of human rights and so forth, and executed by Defense, UPDF and others, referred to the Defense Committee, and never came back, never saw the light of the day. We also had a matter regarding Kasese killings and so forth. We tried to monitor, did this matter come back? So we started measuring productivity of committee. How much business went there? How much came back? Now we started also analyzing, are these committees performing well because of the people who lead them? To be honest, in our reports we have discovered that a leader of a particular committee has a lot of influence on how the committee works. And these are areas we should look into. And the other area, of course, we looked at was the constituency. But constituency were not scoring like percentages. We are only scoring attendance of district council meetings in ex-officio capacity. And the reason we went there, because MPs are ex-officio members of district councils, and in a year you find like 5 or 7 meetings, but also to do oversight over planning by local governments and implementation. Then we have been also compiling political assistants. We want MPs to run the constituency in a structured way. That when there's a challenge, there's an office, there is a political assistant who can attend to the people. And some parliaments, we got this from some parliaments in like Zambia, even in the UK, a constituency office and so forth. But of course, MPs have been raising a challenge. They're not given money to rent offices, to pay political assistants. So some of them say it's expensive. So we don't know, well, maybe it's a high time also thought, what does the constituency allowance entail? Only mileage to go, or also to support an MP to maintain a constituency office? So those are the questions we have been. And also to add value to Parliament, we are looking at, as an institution, how many bills were passed in that session. For instance, we looked at the 11th Parliament. In the first year, they passed 23 bills, as compared to the first year of the 10th Parliament, where I saw 10 bills in the first year. But also now the question we ask, these bills were passed, yes, but which bills are they? We found out that 4 are supplementary budgets. Then we also go deeper, supplementary on what? Then you find maybe classified expenditure, salaries of civil servants. So it raises questions of planning. Then we're supposed to, maybe you're not planning properly. Why should we have 4 supplementary bills in one financial year? It's a challenge. So with that, we think it adds more value than only focusing on the individual MPs. We look at them, amendment to taxes, okay, taking 17% of the bills. So are they only tax increments we are looking at, or we are looking at other issues also? So for us, we think that to add value, we should move away from only the individuals to the actual work of Parliament and the deliverables.
Exactly. And when you talk about the bills, we were talking about it here. I think I had a panel, we discussed briefly about it, the performance of the 11th Parliament in the first 1 year. And the 23 bills, because they talk about 23 bills, 31 reports tabled, and about 60-something resolutions. And that seems quantitative.
Yes.
Because like he said, the bills that have been passed, those that are not budget bills, there are issues raised about them. I have asked one former MP, hey, this Parliament it's either very hardworking or the opposite. Each bill is passed in 1 day. I have never seen, when I covered Parliament, they would take a week or 2 discussing back and forth, a word here, a word there. So I don't know if that captures the qualitative. And we have here Chemonges who has...
But these bills come from committees, right?
What I mean is, after a second reading at committee stage, before you would find that people are saying, no, this clause here should change, this word should be may and not shall, and there would be a debate, like really actual debate. Now I think the bills that have been passed, the ones that I followed were the mining bill, and recently the electricity bill. And you find that very easily they have sat and in one sitting. But Chemonges, you can tell us if we go into the quality and also actually what we were talking about, rating these MPs. I saw someone saying you can't rate them by speaking, you know, and other people are saying, but the MP's job is to speak. The representation is through speaking. Yet representation actually covers the other areas of the functions of an MP. What is your view about how many times each MP has spoken and how that determines their performance in their role?
Thank you, Agatha. And I think this is a good conversation because of the situation and where Parliament finds itself.
Yes.
Parliament is a critical institution as far as in a democratic institution, in a democratic country, because it's the bedrock of what would ideally be in a democratic setting for good governance. And so scoring MPs is a good initiative, and that can't be disputed. However, the question is how and what. The new vision, the new vision scorecard is specifically on the number of times the member of Parliament speaks, which is good, but I think it falls short on a number of things. Coming to the realization that much of the work in Parliament is done at the committee level before it eventually goes to the plenary, and so when you're looking at close to 80% of the work is done at the committee level, and maybe let's say 20-30% is done at the plenary level, it means that you're focusing on 30 and trying to not focus on the 80 or 70%.
Ignore 70.
Which may be a bit unfair to the members of Parliament.
Yes.
And aware that if you look at the roles of a member of Parliament, which will be ideally representation, oversight, appropriation, and
legislation.
Much of that is it's founded on the committees, and therefore to get a proper gauge of what Parliament and MPs do or what they should do of the happenings at Parliament, there has to be focus on both. Focus equally should be on the quality of some of these things that happen at Parliament. Because if you only look at the number of times a member of Parliament speaks, and if you go further and look at what happens during the plenary sitting, you notice that a member of Parliament may actually choose to focus on information, procedure, and order.
Or seconding.
And that could be purely what is focusing. I add my voice on that.
Yes.
And each time they say that, that's a point. Each time you say procedure, each time he says
as having spoken.
Yes. Each time he says information, and you can find maybe out of 10 MPs, he gives information in each of the MP's submission.
Exactly.
He scores higher than any of the
than
MPs.
a person who waits on their area of expertise and they actually give submission that is
True.
So
You look at at that point you look at the quality of what is being presented. It outweighs the dynamics there are a bit different. But also what Honorable here says, the aspects of catching the speaker's eye.
yes.
I think it's more of learning how to maneuver through in catching the speaker, because you may want to catch, but the speaker's eye does not catch you, which is a
What
bit
are you
tricky.
supposed to do?
So yeah, I think that whereas scoring MPs is very fundamental, to get the clear picture, there has to be a thought through in how it's done, because this is very critical, and it helps to inform the country, but also Parliament itself on stuff to do with planning, capacity building, and how best, as far as the roles of a member of Parliament are concerned, they can be improved. So I think that the New Vision's scorecard, it's good, and we need to applaud that, but it falls short on a couple of things, which I think that if they're addressed, it can give us a clear picture of how the performance of Parliament, but also the individual members of Parliament.
But if I may ask, and still you, Timothy, the records of committees, how are they gotten? It's not captured on the Hansard like plenary, and in the reports that they come up with, it's not written of who contributed what. Isn't that right?
True.
So wouldn't it be hard to track performance in committees?
True. It's very hard to track that, but then there has to be a thought through of how this has to happen, because eventually that's where much of the work happens, and it's unfair for a member of Parliament who could have contributed the same in the committee level, and when the report comes on the floor of Parliament, they are not allowed to make submission to the same.
Because the chairman
the chair has already
Yeah,
submitted. So it becomes a bit unfair, and so when you are allocating the points, they are left out. Yet they did a lot of oversight work. They did a lot of commenting at the committee level and
researched
contribution.
and contributed.
And if you look at the recent scorecard, you find that some of the MPs who are knowledgeable in specific areas, they don't feature anywhere, and so it's a bit tricky. But also when the structure of merging ministers, merging the members of Parliament, and scoring them at the same level, it does not give you a clear picture.
I think, to be fair, in New Vision, they made that distinction. They said these are ministers. Sometimes they were responding to this and that, but still, for someone in Terego, she said that can seal your fate. Who sees just the headline, the most active members of Parliament, and there were photos of people least active, most active, 00 times. But Honorable, now that you see these challenges, and of course, considering that it might actually affect your political career or how your electorate rates you, what can an MP do then to be seen to be actually working, if we are talking about a Parliament that, and you won't be sitting in half forever. There's a time when all the 500 will be there, and all the 500 are fighting to catch the speaker's eye. You'll have backbenchers who are very far where she can't see. You'll have people that she, naturally it comes that she will easily pick one person over the other. What would an MP do?
Yeah, one, most crucial is the speaker. Now that he or she has seen this, then definitely the speaker has now to balance the boat and see that at least MPs are given chance. Other than, people like Chemonges, the information, order, this, you find for them they are captured many, many times. But now she will have to balance the board and really give chances to all the MPs. And at times, MPs walk out. I've now realized to speak, you remain there until Parliament closes. Now, I get chance at the last minute. As now Parliament is closing, will be very few. And now she's able to pick.
Yes.
So, to my colleague MPs, we can still do better. This is first year. Many people thought because we are sitting in shifts, it will not have impact. No organization will come out to rate us. After all, we are not able to sign. So now they have seen it is impacting negatively. 2, ministers should be clearly put in another page, not together with us. Best performance. They are responding or replying to.
They are being asked.
Yeah. So you cannot say the many times given to them. Like look at the State Minister of Finance. I'm telling you, in a session where we are discussing financial matter, he can even speak 40 times, and he's responding. Go back, do this, back and forth. And 2. The issue of committee. Maybe what New Vision can add is another page for committee participation. Very, very crucial. But again, it will disadvantage MPs who have not been sitting. Like this committee of, they call it, oh my God, this which was merged with the State House.
Presidential affairs.
No, there is the committee for, I don't know why I'm forgetting, technology, innovation, and science. These guys have just been there. Now, how do you rate them at committee level?
But why have they been there? Why have they?
The committees have not been sitting. Of course, I don't sit in their committee, but I hear colleagues complain in corridors. And then there are some committees that don't sit regularly. They don't. But for me, where I sit, legal and parliamentary affairs, you almost sit daily. You sit the whole day. And then human rights, you sit almost daily after the wave off. There was an embargo that we should first finish business of main committees before coming to the. So there are committees that are not that very, very active. But of course, it depends again on the chairperson. That is why it's right to keep changing chairpersons. Yes. Seeing on how much your committee is doing. Yes. Other than other people will be seen to be very active, others will be naive. Yeah. So I think Speaker really needs to see to it that chances are given to people. And some people even don't speak at all. So how do you give them chance? They say, I wanted to talk on the other issue, not this one. But every other issue that comes on the floor. So you find that the issue where you had something to say has passed without you being picked. And if they pick you to the next one for you. But I think every member of parliament now has to work hard. If you are scored 0 for 2 years, just to know if you're coming from Terego.
Also give information. Or add your voice. And I'd like to ask Dr. Werikhe now, how does that affect? But again, this constituency rating, you cannot rate a member of parliament on an office. You go for the activities, how much this person has done. Like my people, they don't want the issue of a personal assistant. They want to call me directly. So I opened an office. It was staying without anything. You are paying rent. So I use my boy. Wherever an issue is coming from, reach there. They call 24 hours. By the time I leave here, there will be over 200 missed calls.
And if I see you have called 10 times, I only reply you once. And the issue is sorted. I discuss with them and so forth. And my voice permanently has become crooked. Yeah, because of that. So I think rating members of parliament should be skillfully done. Although I appreciate what New Vision has done, it has actually energized me. Hey, I'm one of the most top MPs who have spoken, by the way, with only 15 points.
Even with 15 times you are
Only 15 times I am far.
Maybe to respond to the Honorable,
Yes.
for the office and political assistant, there are non-gradable measures. We don't attach a grade to that. Reason being, the scorecard also helps the MP to publicize the work of the MP. That if she has an office, we put there the address and we say, you had an office or no. If the political assistant is there, we put the name and the contact details. So those who read can also use it as a way of improving relationships between the constituency and the MPs. So you were asking something.
I was asking about how this might affect the debate, the quality.
Yes.
Because now, if every MP has seen that they will be, at the end of the day, rated according to that, won't we now actually have more just putting up their hands just to be saying something, even if they don't have anything substantial
to speak,
to say?
Yeah, it comes back to the way we have created our parliament. You know, when we disseminated the scorecard of the third session of the last parliament, we got views from citizens and were saying the MPs are too many. Why can't we instead maybe reduce the house and create another chamber? The reasons they were giving was that if we create the upper house, maybe it will vet the decisions of the lower house. And also it will give an opportunity to people to speak. And maybe you have 250 in the parliament and maybe 250 in the Senate. Instead of having all of them crowded in one place. To be honest, it is a concern that it may be very, very hard for us to control the quality of the debate. But we also made a recommendation to encourage MPs to utilize the research department and the facilities they get. To be honest, I followed the debate on the physical planners bill. Board, it was physical planners, is it a registration board bill in this year? But when people were debating, I felt like some people were not debating, they were not discussing what they knew for sincerely. Because it was an issues of engineering, and then you find someone saying maybe let's put agriculture officers there, let's put it. And this is a profession. It's like you getting medical, medical registration board, and then you want to put there people who know nothing about the medical things. So we need MPs to do the research, but there are MPs who do not care. And yet, even when you evaluate their background, they have never been engaged in development work or in this work of legislation, law, and so forth. If you're a primary school teacher, for instance, you even never headed a school, you need to take time to research and then speak from the point of knowledge. That's the only way we shall improve the debate.
What about the question I was asking Chemonges on committee? How do you track performance in
we
committees?
Speak on handset.
Yeah, so what I want to
in committees,
what I want to say, tracking the MPs in committees is quite expensive, and we have been committing a lot of resources there, where we deploy recorders in the committees, and then we try to take time to take a register of the MPs who participate in the committee. If you come to Africa Leadership Institute, we have a Hansard pig for committees. In the third year of this parliament, we were able to cover 18 committees, and we produced a very big book of the proceedings. In the following year, we had 20 committees. In the fifth year, we had 22. So we thought that by doing this, maybe Parliament can learn from us like previously, and they invest in maybe recording committees and transcribing. Because we discovered a lot of debate is lost. At the end of the day, you just find the report, but there are MPs who make very good submission there because they have more time to speak. But to be honest, it requires resources.
The reason I ask that, I know MPs who have done a very, very significant job in their committees, to the extent that their committees can't sit without them, because one, the one I'm talking about is a senior MP and also has knowledge about the natural resources sector, and where many bills that are technical have been brought in, and the committee would sit and say, but he's not yet here, we will not know what to say, we won't know how to proceed. That MP, for example, is not on the list of the most active.
Is again where?
It's not on the list of the most active. and that's really, really unfortunate. But also the committees, can we use the attendance? Because I have heard these stories about attendance in committees, and you can look at the reports that have come to Parliament. You find so many places not signed. And I have been told that in a committee like Natural Resources, they would sit only 10 people to consider. They have considered the most business in this house so far. Why can't we now determine on that attendance if we cannot go further at this stage to look at quality?
And actually, before Honorable responds, we had a similar concern in our evaluation of the previous report. You find 28 members on the committee, and then only 5 signed the report. Then you ask, where are the rest? Did they read the report? Were they part of the proceedings, or they don't know what's there?
Yeah. Here to Agatha and Doctor. This is what I was saying. You see, you can be over 38 members, 40 members of a committee. Only 15 will be consistent, or 10. Others, like members of legal and parliamentary affairs, there are people who are members of that committee and they have never attempted to come once. Nothing. Then there are those who come, they just beep the meeting. They sign and run out. So recording is very crucial. Then you find a few people sit there up too late. You really hustle. And when you want to leave, the chairperson says, no, if you leave now, what shall we do? I remember recently, I threatened to leave my committee and go for genders. Oh, if you go, we shall petition. Because I'm one MP who attended the highest in human rights. I was the highest, then the chairperson of the committee. I didn't miss. I don't remember missing. If I ever missed, maybe once or twice. Because I know the importance of being there. Then they rate you 15. This is an insult.
So Timothy, having sat in these committees, what is your view of that? Because while we have MPs claiming that no, this is unfair because we have contributed in other activities of Parliament like committees, the records show something different. Like I've told you, for me, I have read most of the reports in this Parliament, and the signatures are few. I have also known that the committee one day was really struggling. How can we sign the report of the bill, only 10 of us? What is your view of the performance of committees?
Thank you so much, Agatha. I think that in a proper system, much of the work should be done in a committee, at a committee level. That even when, say, it's a bill, if it moves to plenary, much of the issues should have been settled at the committee level. And so there is less discussion at the plenary level. That should be I thought that should have been the thought process as far as consideration is concerned. That you do much of the work is clear at the committee level, and then when work goes to plenary, there's really less to back and forth.
Yes.
And so, but we find ourselves in a system where much of the things go to plenary and there has to be a back and forth. But also, it's looking at the as far as resources and all these things covering plenary, it can be hectic given the number of, it's expensive, and the number of committees are quite big. But also we could think of if AFLI, Parliament itself as an institution could partner, new vision, new partnership, you partner and you distribute the committees. It becomes a bit less work, but also there is a bit of different partners coming together to work and think through of how some of these things should be done. But also I know that at the committee level, there are incentives that are given to the MPs, which eventually I think that goes to them.
Like giving them an allowance per city.
Yeah,
50.
Yeah, there are incentives, which eventually
But
goes
Which
there.
one? Is it the food or what?
No, the 50,000.
The 50,000.
50,000.
It says a year and then you come and get it, the
Yes,
50,000.
Which,
At times you
Do you get it when on that day?
nothing.
Or you no longer get the allowance?
The allowance, I mean, I've heard about it, that we get 50, but we have never been given 50 a year like this. I think it's given later. Like after a year, yes, they will just put it on your account. Because for human rights, the clerk was still compiling. And he said, I have now finished. I'm now going to table it in finance. I don't know where they table it. So what can 50,000 do in this country?
But also,
what are we
even
supposed
if
to
it
do?
was more, isn't it possible for someone to come and sign and leave?
You just sign and you
leave.
you leave.
Don't they
They have
do
been
that?
doing
That's what I'm
that.
True, that's true. But if you try to look at the committee and how even they are distributed, there is an issue as far as for those of us who are involved in scoring the MPs. You see, it can't be about the MPs. It's largely about those of us who score the MPs. And so it can't be that MPs, the question can't be to the MPs. The question is to those of us who are involved in scoring them. Because you see, these MPs, most of them, or some of them, they are present in committees, they are present for the plenary sittings, they are plenary for field visits, and even some of those maybe out-country visits. But when it comes to scoring, they find themselves in the other side, for which now, because it can't be, they have done their part. Those of us who are involved in scoring them, it's on us now to try to think through. You find a member of parliament has done properly as far as representation is concerned, is present for aspects to do with legislation. They're always there and they are well knowledge. But as far as the dynamics that are involved in there, so I think that it is on us, AFLI, Parliament Watch, New Vision, even Parliament itself as an institution, to come through, and there has to be a thought process, because this thing negatively affects the members of Parliament. You imagine the life cycle of the MPs. You have 5 years. The first year you're trying to catch up. The second year and third year,
you're trying to settle in.
Third year you
Going back to
go back
election
to the default setting. You go back and you are trying to survive. So usually maybe 4th year, 5th year, now the dynamics of going back. So usually I think there has to be a thought process in this.
Let me ask you one last question on this, Doctor.
Yes.
What Timothy is saying makes me think we'll have now a bigger problem of the problems we've had in this country, that people will start paying the scorers to put them as number 1 or number 2, at least among the top. How can we safeguard against that?
No, actually, as Africa Leadership Institute, we don't do things haphazardly. One, we train you, and then we have levels of verification. Like the people who collect the data are not the people who enter the data, and then there are other groups that verify against what has been entered. And then before we publish a report, we subject it to peer review. That's why we partnered with Uganda Management Institute, where we bring different stakeholders to look at the findings. And then working with the Directorate of Corporate Strategy in Parliament, they do the validation. When you look at what's coming, is this okay? Is it fair? Only that in the 10th Parliament, we wanted a memorandum of understanding whereby we agree on the methodology, because they really appreciate that we initiated this work and it has improved their M&E function.
Yes.
But now there is that need for collective, for working together to improve what we are doing. But it's unfortunate to report that politics are taken over the parliament in the 10th Parliament, because when our matter was presented to the commission, it became very political, and the individuals who said they own the MPs, these are my MPs, you cannot rate my house. So in one of the discussions, we had to ask that, but you are paid allowances for your private houses. This is a public house. So since we knew that there's no law that bars us from rating Parliament, we continued. But at least we have put in those safeguards to ensure that there is accuracy. And other colleagues who are coming on board like New Vision, it will really be bad for a member of parliament to prove that participated and you have given a member of parliament 0. So we are trying so much to put those layers to ensure that our research has integrity. Yes.
Okay, maybe Honorable, I should ask you actually what should be the last question. These scorecards came because people realized that Parliament is one of the places people go to get free money. Because right from time immemorial, when they brought that book, attendance book, for example, it's because MPs don't want to do the job they are paid for. When they come to Parliament, they're in the canteen as debate is going on. When I covered Parliament, I saw that alone. What can be done about that vice of MPs who come? We are talking about committee attendance, which is very bad. Also, the House attendance. You have the same MPs who are really committed to going, but then you have those that you've never seen in Parliament and you will not see there.
Thank you. I 100% agree with the scorecards. I actually needed it like half a year, you score. But of course, it's expensive. But what I will advise is they should do both committee and plenary. It really, work at times breaks the few MPs. The report is needed tomorrow. It has to be on the handset. The rest have gone, I'm going to sleep. Actually, signing the book should be at the last minute as the committee meeting ends. It should, and
someone should keep the book and bring it out.
But this thing of saying, we're mature, no way. You shouldn't be earning on other people's behalf.
Yes.
This thing is very good. It's excellent. And it's going to make people
only
improve.
The method that you're disagreeing with.
Our electorates are busy looking for this. Me, I've kept the newspaper, and now that I'm rated highly, you cannot believe how I'm selling in the village.
Yes, Honorable, it's good to hear that.
I'm so happy.
Actually,
that you are selling the village.
To give some information, we went to monitor the impact of the scorecard just before the 2021 elections. I was in West Nile on Purchase Radio with a number of politicians. And the callers happened so much to refer to the scorecard, and they had photocopied it in the constituency. So I also went to Bujenja, and in Masindi, I found one MP who did a record of what he did in the 5 years, and even put newspaper pullouts, cuttings from the New Vision to show how he performed, to put a case that, you see, I'm not just sitting in Kampala. So for us, what we wanted is that practice, that people know that they are being held responsible for the offices that they hold.
By the way, Doctor, do you know that as plenary is going on, in
Yes.
Terego, we have people watching. Now, once I stand up, they take a photo and send to my phone.
Send it to you.
They say, you are performing very well. We have seen this. It's a serious thing. Yeah.
But I think there's so many dynamics here that, for example, Dr. Werikhe here was telling us a story of how an MP who never shows up in Parliament and is always in the constituency with his people, drinking with them, barring for them, is popular in his constituency. So you will have the electorate which cares less about what you're saying or doing in Parliament, but more about how you are attending their funeral, which you can't do both. You know, you will either be with them in the constituency or in Parliament representing them. I don't know how you deal with that.
Mindset change. Mindset change. You can send a contribution. That's why you have a PA. The PA goes to attend those other things.
If they don't see you frequently.
You, of course, weekends are there. We are given fuel to be in the constituency. So if I can appear maybe after 2 weeks, they know that I cannot drive every weekend. But those are human beings. Once you explain to them, they listen. And they must also see on the floor of Parliament. For Terego, there is no shortcut. You are not seen. You just prepare to pack your bag and go. Yeah, that is it. I remember one of the MPs of the 10th Parliament, they just got this scorecard. I even had it. I said, what is he going to do there? Let him stay here, where people are not speaking. There is time for speaking. And that's why our place is not developed.
Actually, he almost knocked a voter with a car. And that one also made things worse.
take a short commercial break. When we come back, we can maybe wrap this up since there's still something to say about it, but then we'll go into the committee leaderships and how they should be, the leaders of these committees should be selected. We'll be right back.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Thank you for staying with us. We are continuing with this discussion, and I wanted us to wrap up on the issue of performance of MPs and the score and rating before we get into the committee leadership. There's an MP that was representing my constituency, and when I covered Parliament, I never saw him there. I think I saw him once when they were voting on something. So when I met him there, I said, but I see everyone here except my own MP. And he said, but Agatha, you come here and achieve what? When you're not a minister, you're inconsequential. What you're saying does not count. And that's what I wanted us to end this discussion on. What about those who actually think, which makes sense, that even if you go and talk, and we're talking about those who say, I add my voice, should you now be practical to say, let me talk for the sake of my voters, or should you actually talk only when you think if I say something, it will add something? And I'm going to first ask you, Honorable, then I ask the rest about what people now think of Parliament's role in the bigger scheme of things.
Yeah, to me, first of all, the 1 minute or 2 minute debate in Parliament, unless you're formidable, unless you are a quick thinker, all of us were not taught by one teacher. The teachers who say, start with the point, knock the nail when it's still hot. Then others say, no, start from somewhere, and you find whatever you want to say, time has already caught up with you.
And they say 20 minutes are over.
But it's very crucial for every member of Parliament to be there. By the way, any debate you miss in Parliament, your constituency has lost a lot. There are things that come when you are not there. So I don't buy the idea of saying it's only ministers who should be in Parliament or whatever they say matters. Whatever we debate matters. If it doesn't matter, then how do we take decisions? It's very crucial. But for me, I think now the onus is on the speaker to also catch the eyes of those who want to catch her or his eyes. Otherwise, we are dying silently. If you get zero, you find it difficult to explain. How dare you explain what New Vision has put on Honorable Sarah Pendi, on Honorable Obigah, on other people?
With you,
Zero.
And for you, you have your zero. How do you explain this? So the zero is a terrible thing. With the 2, with the 1, with the 3, the performance is really, really wanting. So anyway, this is the first year. I also acknowledge that we are not helped by Parliament. Yeah, they did not prepare us. We just started swimming without any preparation, without even swimming costumes. You don't know where the northern wing, south. You have to find out where it is.
You were thrown in the deep end.
In the deep end, and then you survive. I thank God I survived, but my friends were not able to survive.
Okay, so, Doctor, what does that say about the relevance of Parliament? When someone says at the end of the day, your speaking doesn't change anything.
I also don't agree with that assertion. I'll use an example of the Vinci coffee recently. Because the coffee was touching 12 million farmers around the country, so you saw everyone was contributing almost to the debate. And then the president picked interest, he called the caucus. The Committee on Trade was very assertive and recommended the cancellation of the bill. So if many voices were not to speak about it, things would have been different.
Exactly.
We look at the 10th Parliament, we had the issue of the Uganda Airlines, where people had registered the airline in their own individual names, not the ministries they represent. Eventually, a minority report carried the day. I think it was by Angom. So the issue of saying that your contribution doesn't matter is really misplaced. If a parliament is active, it becomes relevant to the ordinary people, just like the parliament vision itself says, a vibrant, independent, and people-centered. What are you discussing? Does it touch the lives of the ordinary person? So for me, I believe that that voice adds value, but I'm also appealing, I use the opportunity, to the leadership of parliament, that when we work together, you know, what we do will bring, even if there are certain areas that parliament may not be really comfortable about it, but we can reach a consensus for purposes of making our parliament vibrant, people-centered, and independent for the good of our people. Yes.
Timothy, what would you say about MPs who have struggled to be in their constituency?
Just one thing.
Yes.
Yes, just one thing before we go to Mr. Chemonges. In the 10th Parliament, we partnered with UMI to develop 8 modules. These modules, we thought there are gaps in the way in which the Parliament is inducted. So we have them in place, and it was our thinking that we partner with the Institute of Parliamentary Studies, and we hold a comprehensive induction for members of Parliament on conduct of parliamentary business, partnerships in the constituencies. We came up with some of them, like that one on partnerships, because we discovered there are so many conflicts in the constituencies. People don't meet, and yet every time they fight, it's not in the interest of their areas. Yes, so if Parliament gives us this opportunity, we have what we can contribute to improve on the quality of our Parliament.
So Timothy, as Parliament Watch, having been in Parliament, I think since the 9th Parliament, right?
We are there since the 7th Parliament.
Since the 7th Parliament? Yeah. Oh, okay. What do you attribute to this talking and not talking and the most active versus the dormant ones? Does it have anything to do with the education levels? Is it confidence? What do you attribute to that from your observation?
From our observation, we've noticed that there seem not to be, our members of parliament seem not to appreciate their roles very well. But also, there seems to be a detachment between what a member of parliament should be doing and what the reality is. You find the dynamics in there between what you're expected to do, but also when you're in the field, there seems to be a bit of different strategies that you have to employ. The current members of parliament are a bit disadvantaged. They came in and they were not inducted, so they had to find their own strategies. And up to now, I think the discussion of having them getting inducted is underway. We hope that with that, the second session and the subsequent sessions will be better, more fruitful, but also direct to realizing the interest and serving the interests of the people at the country level. But also, more importantly, I think there's need for I think continuous speaking to our members of parliament to appreciate that parliament plays a fundamental role in a democratic setting. Arguably, parliament is the strongest arm of the government. Ideally, of course, the executive seem to appear the strongest, but parliament is the strongest. That can be just checked in the recent discussions about the coffee. If they choose it will take the same route. And that speaks on all these other issues, human rights and all of that kind of thing. So I think there's need for us to continuously speak up to this. The members of parliament, with close to 70-80% of them are new. The aspects of them appreciating the dynamics in there, we need to ensure that they get up to speed on the same. But also, I think the administrative arm of government, of parliament, that's the leadership. Because most of the members of parliament, you come for the session, you're not given chance, they get demoralized, and then they choose to say, I mean, why should I?
Why should I?
I was the member of parliament during the passing of the budget. I was asking him, why are we here? We had an event. So he says, I mean, there is really very little that I can contribute. I will not be picked. But which is a misinformed position. Members of parliament should be present. So I think that this is up to also the leadership at parliament to ensure that the things are streamlined.
Yes.
And on top of members getting to understand their roles, they also ensure that they are given these opportunities. But for those of us who score them, I think there's also need for thought process in what we do, because eventually this affects members of parliament. A member of parliament has performed on certain aspects, but you score him on speaking, which affects him, and it's a bit unfair as far as the principles of these things are concerned. So I think there is need for thought process on this, but also realizing that a member, if you are to score a member of parliament, it should be in line with their roles. It can't be just on a specific aspect.
Okay, so
there's also virtual attendance, and you will never be picked if you're on virtual. I don't remember a single day. I tried to be on virtual 3 times. You put up your hand, the team that controls the line do not put you. So how about these ones who have been putting their hand on virtual?
Yes. When we were in school, all of us, I don't know if your teachers used to use the same tactic. So the teacher would see that this person is always speaking. Let me look for others who are not. I don't know if because one of the leaders of parliament now was a teacher. I don't know if she can apply that and say, no, I cannot pick Honorable Obigah again. I have been picking her and look behind the backbenchers. Or maybe just select someone because they have to speak.
Others are very stubborn. Like somebody like Chemonges will shout and shout
until they pick them.
and just to distract others. There are those who know the tactics. Just as the previous speaker said, 80% or 70% are new. Now you just feel
you are intimidated by the
shout and just make sure that you don't say much. And times whatever he wants to say is about a necktie. But at times you wonder why this. Yet the speaker has said next is Obigah Rose, for example, and then it distracts the whole thing and people laugh. Now what you are supposed to say is forgotten. Let's go to the next item. Don't you say I've been blocked?
Let us use
one of my colleagues who has been rated 0. I remember twice his name was called. Twice. But now these mess,
the rowdy
ones, they took the show and he has been rated 0.
So a lot of dynamics at play. But let's use the remaining minutes to discuss committee leadership. The sectoral committees of parliament are supposed to change the leadership, and I think membership is supposed to change every after 1 year. And the year ended in May, so there's been calls for those who have interest in leading committees to apply. Now, personally, this is the first time I was hearing about applications, because what we know, and I am told it has been the case, but at the end of the day, because application should mean that I have applied, put my credentials, and you have seen that Agather can handle finance committee, for example, because she has studied things related to that. At the end of the day, that is not what we see in parliament. Honorable Obigah, you have been in parliament for 1 year now. What is your sense of how committee leadership is chosen?
Thank you. One, actually, you have not come across what takes place. Now, let me explain this. Before you are put in a committee, you apply for the committees you want, and the leadership sees where your potentials are. And we are advised to apply for committees where you fall. Like as a lawyer, I applied for legal. And I have a master's in gender. I also applied for gender. Now they make you put 2, is it 3? Then you also put the other side. Now they choose according to your papers where you can best fit. But of course, not oftentimes they do that. We are many, but they are supposed to strictly follow that. And to be on committee leadership, you apply. Even last time, I applied to be on leadership as a chairperson or vice. But because we are very many, and we are all leaders, by the way, we're elected to lead our constituencies. And therefore, we must be given chances to lead committees. It is unfair to have one person run the committee as if this is an angel or the only brain in that parliament. For me, I want my next application. If I will not be picked to head the committee, then I would say witchcraft is real. This would, because I have capacity. If I can lead Africa in Geneva, why not here in this parliament? If I can be a president of YWCA, if I can be vice president in YWCA for 2 terms, if I've been the president of UCA, plus many others, if I can head UMI as a guild president, why am I not heading a committee?
So according to you, what are the factors that determine?
I don't know now. After I've applied, why haven't they picked me is the reason now. For me, I stopped there because I have all the potential to be a committee chair. Maybe why they didn't pick me, I was new, but they also picked new people.
Yeah.
Why did they leave me? This is the question. So I leave it to the leadership to pick me this time.
Because you have shown your capabilities.
That one. But we always apply. This other time we applied, and we have also applied either to remain on those committees or to shift to another committee. But now the leadership can decide to retain you there. That is in their hands. But they should also put me as a committee chair.
Timothy, have you maybe made any observations?
But even ministers, maybe before Timothy, when the president looked at us, he said, all of you have the potential to be a minister or a state minister. But here now, I'm only going to pick fishermen. And I hope in the next reshuffle, he will also consider those who are not fishermen.
So what I was asking is, if you have made any observations over the time you have been in parliament to see probably what is considered by the political parties when they are selecting committee leaders.
Thank you, Agatha. I think that in first of all, in an ideal setting, if you qualify to be a member of parliament, ideally you should be given an opportunity to
qualify to lead.
You should qualify. It's just that I think in our setting, a bit you may qualify to be a member of parliament, but certain things fall short for you to qualify. But I think there are a lot of dynamics that are involved in choosing a chair or say a deputy. Because first of all, you're looking at interest of the respective parties, their interest. If you are chairing, say, a budget committee, their interest of the party, especially for the ruling party, I think that their interests rule over and they preside. So to that extent, I think that the aspect of, whereas the aspect members of parliament apply, and also you're looking at the interest, the chairperson, on top of what they do, you have to ensure that you have the capacity to mobilize your members. Actually, you can be a chair and fail to do the work that you're doing because of your failure, maybe leadership skills. I've seen others have a bit, they keep on disagreeing with the chair of how some of things are done. So some of those things, I think that the aspect of them applying, it's a proactive way of ensuring that the committees work, but also understanding that because much of the work at parliament is done at the committee level, there has to be thought process in choosing the leadership. And you're looking at, if you have a thorough committee, actually much of the work at parliament much of the work in plenary is listened. And so I think it's a great initiative.
Okay. Dr. Werikhe, what should be considered? This paper saying that if you qualify as a member of parliament, you should ideally qualify as the leader of the committee. I disagree, of course, but what should be considered?
For me, she hinted on something that based on your potential, you are requested to apply to join particular committees. So if you're a lawyer and you choose legal, then your ability is in the legal. Then that places you in a better position to compete for leadership. But not that because you have equivalent and you qualify to be a member of parliament, you should lead any committee.
Yeah.
Because you may lack the competence. For instance, I used to look at the PAC, Public Accounts Committee, under Nandala Mafabi. It was very active. At a certain point, I think the General Mugisha Muntu deployed Madame Alaso with education background. She was not as effective as she was doing in the Committee on Social Services. So competence is okay. And the issue of application to get this leadership is fine, as long as it is not done as a ritual. But many of us who work around the parliament, like he said, there are so many considerations. For instance, I'm not sure if Abdu Katuntu applied to lead the rules, discipline, and privileges. Because when NRM released the list, he was made a committee chairperson by the NRM government in parliament. And yet he had just shifted from FDC and is independent. So did the NRM consider that there are members of the committee who are loyal to the party, or there was another consideration? So for me, I think application should not be a ritual. If they're subjecting the finalists, someone should lose fairly. Because in Honorable's voice, she seemed not contented with the process.
Yeah. Because my thing is that if you're telling people to apply, they are going to think you're going to consider their
application,
their credentials, right?
Yes.
Which is different from if we know that this is just
appointment,
and we are okay with it, we have no problem. Because application still looks like the process, while it shows that they're applying, it still looks like appointment. Because like what he's asking, for you to bring Honorable Alaso to head PAC, yet if there were applications that time, I don't have the recollection. You could have seen that in your party you have accountants, you have auditors, you have so I thought that would be what is followed. But this ties in with what we're discussing. Now that this is after the first session, shouldn't party whips look at the performance of these committees? When you look at the activities, the functions of committees, because Honorable earlier talked about a committee which has never sat. And at first I thought it is Parliament that should determine committee work until I read the rules. I think it's 159 which talks about standing committees and 189 about sectoral, which includes you initiating work on your own. Because if you are human rights and there's an issue with torture, you can initiate and investigate that.
True.
So shouldn't whips look at the proactiveness, the performance of committees under the current leadership to determine the next leadership? What do you think, Honorable?
You know,
and also attendance. We also talked about
attendance. For a committee to participate so well, one, the speaker can allocate work. You see these very many bills. Then we have entities that appear under a particular committee. I think for legal, are they 11 or 8? Yeah. Then in human rights, you have these torture victims. You can't handle them in a single sitting, which means work accumulates. Then you sit the next time. And then it also depends on the active members of your committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should be able to give suggestions and those dynamics of how work is pending here, what else we can do. For example, a member of our committee said that there are girls who are murdered from wherever they go to work.
Middle East.
Middle East. And when their bodies arrive, so many internal organs are missing. Then we said, okay, can we get a doctor's report for an action up to tomorrow? But if we got a doctor's report, by now we would have gone to Middle East. So this interactive or communication among his committee members make a committee active. Then you cannot only read the chairperson. because it's participatory. I bring an idea, another person brings an idea. We have never gone to West Nile, and yet our prisons are full, and there are a lot of complaints. We need to go there and check. Oh, there is this information. You see, there is recently police and other people were beating a certain gentleman, stepping on this guy. This is human rights abuse, torture. So we need to go there. And this is sent to the chairperson. And the chairperson alone cannot collect all this information. So I still strongly say lobbying for chairpersonship must stop. The appointing authority must use people's credentials. If at all, we can have an interview. After getting these ones who have PhDs or masters and so forth, or these ones who have also applied, yes, they have equivalence. How do you rate them? What do you have to put on table to be a chairperson of a committee? Then this is when you take a decision. But people apply, people are running on corridors, lobbying. Me, I don't have that character. I run to do what? You should really understand that this girl has a potential and she can do this, and she has submitted. If you want us to lobby, also say, yes, there is also this session for lobbying. Then we do this. But my papers should really lobby for me. And my ability to stand and speak strongly should lobby for me. For me, I think that is how it should be done. But you find funny characters, these are now whips. Whip of this place. How did you appoint this person? Loyalty? The speaker belongs to all of us. We are the children of the speaker. And the speaker is 100% neutral to treat us equally.
It's supposed to be.
And that, for me, that is what I think. That is for me, is neutral. Now, when there are things to be with supposed to be, it beats my understanding. But I know in the second year we can do better.
When Honorable speaks about a chairperson of the committee staying there for long, it reminds me of when we covered Parliament in the 9th Parliament. The Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, which I liked to cover a lot, had one chairperson all through. And I actually think that man was chairperson even before. He's called Tashobia. Honorable Stephen Tashobia. So, from your experience, Timothy, what do you think determines the performance of a committee? Is it the leader and even the leader themselves? Is it what we are talking about, qualifications? Is it character? Is it experience? Because I actually wanted to be on record that we referred to Honorable Alaso. I don't think she was not, I think she did well as PAC chair. Because at the end of the day, even if you are an accountant, if you don't have character to actually stand up to these people, to resist corruption and being bribed, it still will not yield that much. So Timothy, what according to you determines this performance and determines that the leadership is effective or not?
A couple of things, Agatha. I think it's not one specific thing that you'll say that determines the performance of the committee. Also, it cannot be, whereas the buck stops with the chair, the members also partly are held accountable. Yeah, they contribute to the performance of the committee. If you look at some of these accountability committees, which are always referred to as juicy committees, I think most of those, if you have people who are determined to work, leadership which is determined to ensure that there is work, because there is a lot of work, especially there's a lot of work in the committee. You find there are no reports being produced. There is nothing that's happening, and so I think that it's a couple of things. But more importantly, I think in the current setting, you will find because there are committees which have been divided to be chaired by the ruling party and those in the opposition
and independent.
Yeah, there are a couple of things. Because if you are the whip for the opposition, you're looking at distributing some of those positions among the different parties. So there are also those considerations. There is aspects to do with education, but also more importantly, maybe the experience. But also in this parliament, we've seen first-time chairpersons.
Yeah.
MPs the first time,
Many.
they are chairpersons,
Very many,
and they are fairly doing well, arguably. They are doing really okay. So I guess it's an opportunity that each of the members of the parliament, those who qualify for the same, should be given.
Okay. Dr. Werikhe,
Yes, please.
qualifications versus loyalty. I have heard people say that in a multi-party dispensation, loyalty is important. That you reward those loyal to you and stuff. But in this case, MPs have an opportunity to consider people according to what they have shown they can do. I have heard that the opposition whip, we were supposed to have him here actually, and he didn't make it, has written to the clerk asking for the performance of his MPs on these committees in terms of attendance and participation. And there are committees which haven't produced any reports since the inception of this parliament. Yet there are those which are required to at least, I think it's Equal Opportunities Commission and Government Assurances. Those ones are required to at least report to Parliament once a year, at least, like at the very least. But we have not seen anything. So should we follow that performance so that, no, as Honorable Betty Namboze, you haven't done your part as chair of the Government Assurances Committee, and let's now see if Honorable Obigah can do better?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that evaluation is very important because it takes us back to the role of these committees to check the executive and also ensure that things are in order. For instance, if the Electoral Commission, which reports only to Parliament, does not bring a report in a whole year, how are we helping the electoral democracy in this country and issues of accountability? The Inspectorate of Government, they report only to Parliament. They should. So if chairpersons are not exhibiting seriousness, then they should be evaluated, a fair evaluation, and then they are changed. For instance, recently there was something controversial. I need to be guided. The mandate of the Government Assurances Committee. We had the issue of the birthdays, and I saw the chairperson saying, I want to summon. But I also know that the mandate of the defense, UPDF is under the Defense and Internal Affairs Committee. So it ended up in the media. I'm going to summon them as chairperson of Government Assurance Committee, and nothing took place. Should we hold these committees just leadership for fun, or we take them seriously to do what they're supposed to do? An evaluation is needed, and actually NRM should do the same.
True.
They should do the same. And honestly, the issue of lobbying kills the effectiveness of that committee.
Yes.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, we dilute the role of the Parliament. Yes.
But what about, Honorable Obigah, what about the political interests? Someone yesterday was telling, when we were talking about these elections of application, and when I was saying I'm skeptical that they work, the person said, of course they don't. That's why people like Sechkubu, for example, Honorable Sechkubu Theodore has never chaired the committee, because the party that is choosing wants to look at, how will this one cater for my interests? Will the reports favor me or not? But also, like we said, we saw it with even the previous opposition parties in Parliament. The leaders of those parties want to reward people who. Where does that leave the political interests?
Well, I don't know why Sechkubu has not been.
No. I use it
For example, I'm just giving us an
yes,
example.
Yes.
But we also have committees that are chaired by independents.
Like Katundu.
And even the MP for Gulu City, Mapenduzi, chairs a committee. But it's very imperative about on the speaker to choose the people. I think it's by they call it government chief whip and opposition whip, and those, they should really play justice. Even if you want to reward, 1 year is gone. Haven't you rewarded them? Now here we need to work if we want this country to move to the next level. This lobbying must stop. Let's get people who can work. Even getting fishermen and so forth. should now change. The president has now allowed fishermen for some time. Now we go for the real food. The country must change. I'm telling you, things are bad. We must work. The work of a member of parliament is so enormous. If you really choose to work, you feel the burden that it's a lot. So if you're just going to reward people, then you're collapsing the whole system. So it's time up for us to give Caesar what belongs to Caesar and God what belongs to God. They must collect reports on performance. And we always speak on, is that the speaker really, like a microphone? No, I think that is sunset at committee level. You can check who participates at committee level. This process must take some time, but they must also work. As you're picking leadership of committees, you must check who is active, who has capacity, openly, no lobbying. Some things must not be lobbied. They must be automatic. If we are going to go by lobbying for everything, then we shall start lobbying for things which cannot even be lobbied for. And we crash the whole system. So for me, I think it's very good that the opposition leadership wants to do check-up. And the same should apply in NRM. You cannot run short of leadership in NRM. You cannot. We are the majority. So reward what? All of us voted the speaker. All of us are under the speaker. All of us are under the different whips. So we should be given opportunity. Whoever is helping to get the leadership should do the right work and should really be affected by his or her consciousness that here I'm trying to err. And simple.
So, Timothy, what is your assessment of the performance of committees? I have seen they tabled about 31 reports in Parliament in this 1 year, and there are about 29 committees. That would be an average of about one report per committee. But remember, there's still reports which are ministerial policy statements, which are routine maybe. What is is that a good performance?
Thank you. Notwithstanding ad hoc committees, which like the
ad hoc
Nakawa
committees.
And the Nakawa,
Exactly, yes. Like even that one, the select committee one, they preside Mani and Musenero.
So that's true. But also you see what Doctor says, lobbying compromises the performance of these committees. But comparative, if you compare the current, the first session of the 11th Parliament with that of the 10th Parliament, this one performed fairly well, with an increased number of reports being tabled. And so, whereas it's true that the committees in the current setting there's a lot that needs to be done. I think the performance is one thing, because then but also you see we have to look at the challenges that some of these committees are facing. The aspects to do with the resources. They have raised concern that the resources that are at their disposal affects
the resources include time. I have seen them complain that they are given little time.
At the committee level?
Yes, I don't know why Parliament is in a rush. There was that issue with both the mining bill that I was talking about, the ECOP, no resources to go and consult the actual stakeholders, no time to finish up and
it has been with all committees.
Interact with, So
if you look at some of those challenges, but also I'm just hearing that there is limited time in the committees, yet that's where they should be able to exploit much of this time.
Yeah, for example, you have 20 people to interview. Those who claim they have been tortured, the torture victims. And then you start from 10. By 1, you should have finished business. Tell me how effectively you will interview 20 people. You will start choosing. We are picking like 3, and you have to give them ample time to understand really if these are torture victims. You'll find these are masqueraders. You know, out of 20, if you find 7 masqueraders, really, are you good to go? So that is the biggest challenge. And if you don't come to Parliament, you are busy in committee, you are rated 0. The other side, you have not done anything. So
there are some committees which at times sit even in the afternoon.
To complete work, at times we end up in the night. So now that whole day you were in the committee, reading, proofreading, this, and it goes to up to night, and you are rated 0. That you did not perform well. So there's a lot, and resources. There is need to juggle. That comes now to leadership. Yes, others are saying we didn't get money, or we didn't get resources to go out. But even amidst scarce resources, other committees went out. So it needs people to use their brains to see how to manage the little or nothing. Yeah, you can take water if you don't have food.
So Timothy, do you finish?
No, I think
conclude your
I think just to probably even when we talk about the 45 the time
Days.
span, yeah, for bills, for example.
Yeah.
I think also, yes, there is a provision that you can come and ask for more time. But I think those are some of the dynamics that committee grapple with. There are concerns in there. But by and large, I think the current committees, there's more that can be done. But also that means that the aspect of performance is important. That even at the thought of scoring the chairpersons and determining whether they should come back or these opportunities should be given to other people, I think that it's true. There's need for more to consider other factors other than just the loyalty and some of these other things. Yeah.
Okay. The last question on this issue goes to Dr. Werikhe. I have been arguing, and I am still doing that. Even as Timothy is saying that this parliament has tabled more reports than the previous one, which is the same as bills in their first year. I still think that's more of a quantitative survey, because when you look at the reports. There's a report I read it was like 80 pages, and at the end I said, why did I waste my time? And the MPs shared my sentiment. On the report, the Msenero report, many MPs on the floor shared my sentiment that the report really was lacking in brick and mortar. So what does this say about the scorecards we are doing? Do we have the capacity to check the quality, to subject them to these quality measures and say, did this bill meet or act that has been passed by Parliament meet the standards? Does this report, what do we do in that sense as we rate and score the MPs?
Thank you, Agatha. In the beginning, when I was trying to critique the results of the vision group, I hinted on something like that as AFLI, we are moving into the qualitative analysis. For instance, we have introduced in the current version of the scorecard something we call the triumphs of the 11th Parliament, where we want to scrutinize each bill and we see what did it respond to. Was it sufficient, or it was just passed for the sake of being passed? So it is important, because by that we shall be adding value in what Parliament is doing. For instance, I was giving the example, we have the NSSF amendment bill, which was passed by this Parliament but referred from the other one. You discover there are those happy that we have moved away from just retirement scheme to offer the savers about 20% of their savings. In our view, we think that one was responding to even challenges of COVID leading to reform of the NSSF bill. But there are also challenges. Other people who are saying, but the guidelines are wrong. They're saying 120 months. So other people say, why not 10 years, even if they have not been consistent, but you count 10 because every year our money earns interest and is kept by the NSSF. So we want to go into that qualitative analysis and say, probably it would have been this to add value. But you are saying quantity alone is not enough. And we have heard the cries of the people. That's why I want to go into that.
Actually, just to add on his submission, we are currently piloting a project called post-legislative scrutiny. And it seeks to scrutinize some of the work that...
But that's post-mortem.
It's post-mortem. But you see, it helps to realize where the gaps are. Some of these, specifically on bills. So you're looking at the MPs are passing bills. Some of the bills are not being implemented. We have a lot of bills. Are so many the laws in this country are so many. Why are they not working? So you want to look at some of, is it how they are brought? Is it how the parliament considers them? Are there specific interests? And I think looking at it at a qualitative view, I think that it's in the same line.
Well, maybe I would divert a bit. Before any bill is tabled, copies of this bill is circulated. And the committee would have worked on this. Now, its ability to read. People are given chances to debate. If you have read and asked questions, maybe to the committee, but then we are allowed to attend any committee sitting. You may not per se deliberate, but you can write and give to them. And then they share your thoughts, and then it's responded to. Now, the speaker has encouraged us to attend the committees we are interested in. Now, once you get a copy of a bill and you know that the committee is sitting, you go with whatever you want to say. Or you send a message. We have parliamentary WhatsApp groups. We share our thoughts. And I think that is how you see bills are passed quickly. It's not that we don't do work. We do. Even when the Committee of Trade was sitting, I wanted to look at the agreement, and I went there. I requested from a colleague, say, give me. And what I wanted to contribute, I gave to them. And they were the ones who contributed.
Yes.
So you may say, well, the quality of work, because there's no much debate, is because people run there. Even opposition, they run there, they try, and then there is minority report, and so forth. And they agree. On this, we agree. Because you participated at committee level. So you should also put at the back of your mind that we lost our speaker. And we took a lot of time preparing for his send-off. And if that time was not lost, I can assure you, would have done better than this.
I will commend you. The quantitative bit is a start. It's better to start there and maybe now improve on quality. But let me ask you guys to give your parting shots on this discussion. I'll start with you, Dr. Werikhe.
Yeah, as we change leadership, it's called upon the chief whips, the party leaders, to ensure that they look at competence.
Yes.
And also, it would be better if they even set targets for some of these committees, so that although some committees they're determined by the business sent there, but it's better to also come with a formula of performance evaluation for these committees, because the stronger the committees, the better the deliverables. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Werikhe. Honorable Rose.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the chairpersons who have already served on committee chairperson positions, but I'm also saying that it's good to give chance to others who have capacity to serve too. And I pray we look at competence and capacity to serve, not lobbying.
Yes.
I thank you so much for today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. Yes, Timothy.
Thank you. So first of all, is to just appreciate this conversation, and this is a conversation which we should have often, so that we contribute to the overall goal of having a stable country, but also more importantly, a country that can accommodate the interest and serve the interests of its people.
Yes.
So just probably also to highlight on the aspect of scorecard. I think that for me, if the aspect of scorecard is very important, but that has to be aligned with the roles of a member of parliament.
Sure.
Once you detach that, then you're doing a disservice to the institution of parliament, but
And
also
to Ugandans.
and to the Ugandans. So you end up presenting a different picture of a specific member of parliament. So, and I think that this is a very good opportunity for the different stakeholders to come through, think through on how some of these things can be done, but also set a threshold on how the MPs can be scored for the betterment of the institution of parliament, but also for a better Uganda.
Thank you,
Thank
Timothy.
you.
Thank you, panelists. I thank you very much for coming and us having this discussion, because, like Timothy, I agree that if that scorecard is what the voters are going to consider, whether to vote someone back or not, it should be really accurate that someone was scored on what they're supposed to do and scored on everything they did, not just or whether they said, I want to add my voice on the floor of Parliament or not. And we really, these are discussions we have here to help Ugandans have a better perspective of what happens in Parliament and what their parliamentarians do and are supposed to do. And we are going to continue with these discussions until next weekend. It's a nice weekend from us.